Akua was just 6 years old when she was brought into the wealthy Mensa household in Accra. Her parents, farmers from a remote village, had died during a famine, leaving her orphaned. Out of goodwill, or so everyone thought, the Mensas adopted her, promising her a life of love, education, and opportunity. At first, life seemed to hold a flicker of hope. Akua was given a room of her own, clothes, and even toys, things she had never known before. But this illusion quickly shattered. When Mrs. Mensa gave birth to her own child, a son named Kwaku, everything changed. Akua was no longer the daughter they once promised to care for. She became the forgotten one, a shadow in the background, little more than a smudge on the clothes. The chores began small, sweeping the floor, washing dishes, but soon grew to the point where Akua was doing all the household work. If Kwaku cried, Akua was blamed. If anything broke, Akua was punished. Her meals grew smaller, her clothes older, and her room colder. The house that had once been her refuge now felt like a cage. The sight of Kwaku hung in the air, her apartment full of cages. Kwaku grew up pampered and adored, oblivious to Akua's suffering. But despite her mistreatment, Akua remained resilient. She spent nights secretly reading Kwaku's books and memorizing his lessons. She nurtured a dream deep inside her heart to rise above her circumstances and one day find freedom. The turning point. One fateful day, when Akua was 15, Kwaku fell gravely ill. The doctors couldn't diagnose the problem, and Mrs. Mensa was inconsolable. It was during this time that Akua overheard a conversation between Mr. Mensa and a traditional healer. The healer mentioned that sometimes mistreated souls within a household bring imbalance and misfortune. Akua said nothing, but she made a quiet decision. She would help Kwaku, not for the Mensas, but because it was the right thing to do. She used her knowledge of herbal medicine, passed down from her late mother, to prepare a concoction. Miraculously, Kwaku recovered. The Mensas were shocked, but instead of gratitude, Mrs. Mensa grew bitter. She accused Akua of being a witch who had cursed Kwaku in the first place. Mr. Mensa, however, began to see Akua differently. He realized her strength and intelligence, qualities he had long ignored. The liberation. 2 years later, Akua's hard work paid off when she excelled in national exams and earned a scholarship to one of Ghana's best universities. By then, her quiet strength and intelligence had caught the attention of people beyond the Mensa household. On the day she left for university, Mr. Mensa gave her a sealed envelope. Inside was a letter of apology and money for her school expenses. For the first time, Akua felt seen. Years later, Akua returned to the village of her birth, not as the timid girl she once was, but as a doctor. She built a clinic to serve orphans and the underprivileged, ensuring that no child would ever have to suffer as she did. When news of her success reached the Mensas, Mrs. Mensa was filled with regret, while Kwaku, now grown, sought to reconnect with Akua. She welcomed him, but made it clear, kindness is the only bridge that binds us. Never forget that. Akua had turned her pain into purpose, her silence into strength, and though she forgave the Mensas, she never forgot the lessons of her past.